Hello everyone and welcome back to The Magic Knitter. In the last video we saw how to cast on your stitches to get yourself started. Today we want to talk about what happens next. Do you get a pattern? Do you just wing it? What happens next? Some of the things on these patterns, it looks like double Dutch. But it's not really. When we break down into it, you'll see how simple it is to follow. So, this is a pattern for a basic baby jumper. Now, I don't know about you, but I think babies grow so fast these days. So I almost never make the first size. Usually I jump straight into the 6 to 12 months and go with that one. Because that way, if you get a little delayed or you're not finished, the child doesn't grow out of it before you hand it over. So, if we want to make the second size, when you come down here to the pattern instructions, you're going to see all these different numbers here. It says using 3 1/4 millimeter needles and the thumb method, which is what we saw in the last video. Cast on 56, 61, 66. Which is it? So what you want to do is you want to get yourself a pencil and draw a circle around the size that you intend to make. So if we look back up here at the top, we're going to make the second size for 6 to 12 months. So that will have a chest size, to fit a chest size of 18 inches or 46 centimeters, it will actually measure 19 3/4. That means that it will fit the child with a little bit of ease. Okay, so when we come down here then to the instructions, we're going to circle the second number in every group. Okay, where it says stitch counts. So using your 3 1/4 millimeter needles and the thumb method, you're going to cast on 61. Okay, and that's exactly what I've done right here. I've got 61 stitches and I've worked a few of the first rows so I can show you guys what happens. So you read the instructions and it says K2, P2, K3, P2. What on earth is all that? You're saying to yourself. K2 means you knit 2. P2 is purl 2. And there's a little asterisk, and we won't worry about that just yet. Then knit 3, purl 2. Repeat from the asterisk. So, ignore this and go knit 3, purl 2, knit 3, purl 2, knit 3, purl 2, all the way to the end of the row. And you should have 2 stitches left at the end, and you knit 2. And that's your first row. Then when you turn your work around to do the second row, it says purl 2, knit 2. That gets you started. And then you go purl 3, knit 2, repeat from the start. So purl 3, knit 2, purl 3, knit 2, all the way to the end. With me so far? These 2 rows will now be referred to as a 3x2 rib. Why do they call it a 3x2 rib? Well, when you look at the work that I've done, we've got 3 stitches here one way around, and there's 2 in there the other way around. So these are the knit 3 and these are the purl 2 if we're looking at it on this side. Turn it over. On the other side, it looks like purl 3 and knit 2. So, simple enough. You keep repeating those 2 rows. It says work 7 rows more. Now, more is the key word here because they're not counting these 2. This is your first row, this is your second row, and if you do 7 rows more, you will have 9 in total. And then row 10, there's some decreasing. Now, I haven't done 10 rows, but I'm going to show you guys the decreasing so you know what's coming next. Remember, very important, we are doing the second size. So here where it says purl 5, ignore that. This number here is what we're doing. So we're going to purl 10 on the 10th row. Okay? So let's pretend it's the 10th row. And we'll go ahead and do that. So purl 1. Now let's look at the purl stitch in the front and up there. And then you wind your wool around and bring it down through the stitch and off. Again, up from front to back. Up there, all around, down and off. Again, like the knit stitch, takes a little bit of practice. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Purl 2 together. Oh my God, what's that? Exactly what it says on the tin, guys. You're going to come in the first stitch. That's to purl 1. If we want to purl 2 together, we're going to go into the 2 of them. Just like that. Okay? Then you can bring your wool around and it comes back down through the 2 of them and off. So we have purl 2 together. The next instructions say purl 7, but remember the second size. So we're purling 8. It's a very good idea to get a pencil, go through your pattern and draw rings around. Everywhere that there's a variety of numbers, you're going to draw rings around so that you do the right one every time. Okay? Right. That's enough to get you started in working through a pattern, but there's lots of other stuff on this pattern. This is a basic pattern, so it's not designed to be too complicated, but if there's something that you don't understand, check the abbreviations. Right here, it's going to explain all the other stuff that isn't knit 2, purl 2. Okay? This little diagram here shows you approximately the size that the finished garment will be. And over here, it tells you how many balls of wool to buy. So, it says 3 underneath the size that I want. And I've got myself 1, 2, 3 balls of lovely, soft, squishy baby wool. Now, what is also quite important with patterns is that you use the right needles. Up here they say tension. Everyone ignores this. Tension is actually quite important because you will create something that is the correct size if you check your tension before you start. Now I know tension squares are faff and no one's got the patience to do 22 stitches and 28 rows for nothing just to check tension. So I've got a bit of a cheat for you. Don't tell anyone. What I do is I put on about 25 stitches. Usually I don't work the whole 28 rows. Ain't no one got the patience for that. So if 28 rows is 4 inches, there's going to be 7 rows in 1 inch. So I did about 10 rows and I'm going to check the tension over here. Now, this is my tension square. And what you can do is measure. If we look at my stitches here, get that little thread out of the way. That's not a stitch. That's just a little bit of thread. That's my working yarn, actually. Get that out of the way there. Now, little tip for you all for pinning things out. I have to say, I love these little kitty squares. You can get them in toy shops, Tesco, places like that. They're soft, they're squishy. You can pin things down on them. Okay? And I find them so useful. So, if we count across, the pattern said 22 stitches and 28 rows to 4 inches. 22 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 20, 22. So, about there is 22 stitches. We have to check that that's about 4 inches. Now, there we go. Yeah, a little under maybe. I can live with that. Okay? Now, what about the other way? 28 rows to 4 inches. So there'd be 7 rows in 1 inch. So how do you count rows? Well, these little V's here is 1 stitch is 1 row. So we count the little V. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So from the start up to that blue line is 7 stitches. That is supposed to be 1 inch. Let's have a look. Okay. I think that's pretty okay for 1 inch. I can live with that. So, my tension is fairly accurate, so I don't need to change the needles. But what happens if you have more stitches or less stitches? Okay, in the 4 inches and the 1 inch. If there are less stitches, that means that you have quite a loose tension and you can use a smaller needle than what they say in the pattern. You just go down one size with the knitting needles. If you have more stitches, you're quite a tight knitter. So I would use a bigger needle and come up a size. Now, that covers tension. Needles. Needles are very important. The pattern says that we should use 3 1/4. And let's say, like me, you go through your bag of knitting needles and you have no idea what size one is because the numbers are all worn off. This needle is an old friend and you can no longer read anything on it. This is a handy little gadget. It's a needle sizer. How do you use it? Well, you keep sticking the needle through the little holes until you find the one that it fits exactly. It needs to fit exactly in the hole with no space. So this needle is 3.25 millimeters. Okay. A US size 10. Is it a 3.5? No, because it's got a little bit of slack there. 3.25, it goes in there. But maybe it's smaller than that. Maybe it's 3 millimeters. No, it won't fit in the 3 millimeter hole. So it's 3.25. Okay. So very useful, handy thing to have in your knitting bag. And the owl is kind of cute as well. The wool that I'm using, I ripped out another project. And it's all wavy like this. Don't panic if you do that and you rip. That doesn't matter. When you knit it back up, no one's going to see any waviness in it and it's totally fine. So don't worry about that at all. You've been watching The Magic Knitter and thanks very much. If you found this video useful, like and subscribe.